Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow.
Yeah, you're married. Tom, you're married. If your husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to some nefarious stuff. Let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures, and look at her track record. How many times does she have to go on in the past 2 months and look at the camera and do a legal apology for all the stuff that she said on the show? And then she also, on Trump's win, calling the loss because of uneducated white women that Trump won.
We have to know that. This is accused.
All accused. Yeah, all accused, but he's in the RICO. This is a big RICO case that her husband's in.
You won't believe what Joe Rogan said. It's awful. Sunny Hostin's husband was just hit with a $450 million RICO scam, and guess who's taking it apart like it's open mic night at a roast? It's more entertaining and has more story twists than a Netflix documentary series. Joe is holding back, so buckle up. Sunny is sweating on live TV. This takedown is so crazy that the FBI might even subscribe. Let's go diving.
Interesting, because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
You know, that's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course.
You know.
They do everything.
Oh boy, get ready for an exciting ride filled with scandal, sarcasm, and sheer jaw-dropping irony. When you hear about the $450 million RICO fraud case, your mind probably conjures up images of shady mobsters and smoke-filled backrooms planning their next big heist. However, this time, the plot twist is much more intriguing and it touches a little too close to home for one well-known media personality. Sunny Host, yes, the same Sunny who frequently discusses controversial topics on daytime TV, is currently embroiled in a legal quagmire that seems like the premise of a horrible crime movie on Netflix, but it's terrifyingly real.
Get it? I also hate Joy Behar, so I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird, so I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of, like, there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View.
The scene? This is the bargain, then. In a massive, multi-layered RICO case, which, for those blissfully unaware, stands for the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the government's go-to tool against organized crime and complex criminal conspiracies. Her husband is charged with one of the most serious financial crimes in recent memory. This is the major leagues, not your average scam or tax avoidance.
Is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, you know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and you know they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's just it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
Everybody's.
When your spouse receives a $450 million RICO charge, it's like receiving a front row seat to the financial end of the world. And just when you think the media frenzy can't be any more intense, not only did Joe Rogan criticize the scandal, but he roasted the entire situation like a bad steak at a cheap diner. Yes, Joe Rogan is the podcast king, an MMA fanatic, and apparently a master of savage political and media commentary. His reaction was one of complete annihilation, without any sugarcoating or sympathy.
I agree with mostly everything that's been said. I mean, we know that, only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system, and doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained to do.
And because it's a RICO case, prosecutors believe that a criminal enterprise, rather than just a dubious side gig, was at work. This suggests that the scheme was planned, systemic, and probably involved a network of people working together to pull off one of the biggest scams in recent history. The fact that someone so close to Sunny Host is involved is a scandal that even daytime TV couldn't script better. Joe Rogan doesn't waste any time in pointing out the obvious contradictions. A media personality who frequently advocates for justice, accountability, and the truth in public has her private life upended by incidents that are completely the opposite. The irony is delicious. It's as if someone is advocating for healthy diet while secretly indulging in fast food at midnight. Roger doesn't have to explain it, but the contrast is clear and hilarious in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. The amazing thing about this incident is how it highlights a huge blind spot in celebrity society. When a famous figure has a close family member implicated in a serious crime, the media's natural response is to either ignore it or vigorously defend them. Despite the inquiry, Rogan chooses the opposite path and refuses to accept any preferential treatment. Nope, it's a private affair. The world should know if you're involved in a major scam, and you should be held responsible.
The View co-host Sunny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, has been accused of federal insurance fraud. According to a new lawsuit obtained by Page Six, the orthopedic surgeon was one of 200 defendants named in one of the biggest racketeer influenced and corrupt organization cases ever filed in New York. Emmanuel was accused of federal insurance fraud and, quote, getting kickbacks by performing surgery and billing a company that insured taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers. According to the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgery.
The ramifications of this case are huge. It's no longer just a personal or family matter. It's a media earthquake. Public trust in institutions and public figures suffers every time a scandal like this occurs, and with such a large figure involved, it's impossible for the story to fade away quietly. The public wants answers, explanations, and most importantly, some entertainment while watching the entire situation unfold. Enter Joe Rogan, the official court jester, who somehow manages to make financial crimes feel like primetime comedy. However, let's discuss the actual alleged fraud itself because it's important to comprehend how deep this rabbit hole goes. This isn't a case of someone falsifying numbers on their tax return. Rather, it's a full-fledged, meticulously planned criminal enterprise. While the accused will undoubtedly be in the spotlight, everyone is wondering how someone so close to a well-known media personality could be involved in something so bold. The intricate money trails are designed to confuse even the most astute investigators and a cast of characters who may or may not have believed they were untouchable. The amount of deception required to pull off a $450 million fraud is mind-boggling.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
It's a typical case of guilt by association, yet people find controversy fascinating, especially when it involves these seemingly untouchable elites and those who are watching. Joe Rogan's ruthless destruction of the situation just serves to fuel the flames. What's funny is how the entire story exposes the hypocrisy of the media. Joe Rogan's viewpoint perfectly highlights the ridiculousness of the scenario, making Sunny Hostin's role as a commentator on justice and morals appear like a script turned upside down. How is it possible for someone who is so outspoken about justice and honesty to stay out of the spotlight when their spouse is accused of masterminding one of the worst scams in recent memory? The situation is ideal for, if you believe that this is a private affair with no broader ramifications, think again. Rogan, ever the scathing critic, delivers it in spades. Debates over media responsibility, the hazy boundaries between private and public life, and the difficulties prominent figures encounter when their family members' acts make news are unavoidably sparked by this. Joe Rogan uses this cultural moment to remind everyone that everyone is subject to criticism, especially those who portray themselves as truth-tellers.
Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said it's on.
If you believe that this is a private affair with no broader ramifications, think again. Rogan, ever the scathing critic, delivers it in spades. Debates over media responsibility, the hazy boundaries between private and public life, and the difficulties prominent figures encounter when their family members' acts make news are unavoidably sparked by this. Joe Rogan uses this cultural moment to remind everyone that everyone is subject to criticism, especially those who portray themselves as truth-tellers. Confront such grave accusations. The court of public opinion moves quickly, and reputational damage might result. Joe Rogan's perspective compels viewers to face the unsettling truth that notoriety and position do not protect anyone from the consequences of serious crimes. On the contrary, they serve to highlight them.